Alrighty guys, well welcome back to National Tiger Sanctuary. Sorry for the slight delay, had a little bit of technical difficulties getting started, but today we are actually going to be talking about two of our non-felid exotic animals on the sanctuary, which are Lenny and Zoe, our two ring-tailed lemurs. Characteristic animal when we think about the lemur species as a whole, in that they are probably the most recognizable of the lemurs. They are primates, so they are generally related to other monkeys and other primates, but they are a very specialized one in that they are only found on the island of Madagascar, just off the coast of Africa. Now, within Madagascar, there are actually over 100 different species of lemurs that call Madagascar home, but the ring-tailed lemur is the only one that is found within us. So they are a pretty specialized animal. Animals are a very unique animal as far as the fact that mid to high canopy where they're found, but they can range in a very large variety of habitats, anything from the denser foliage, the denser forest within Madagascar, all the way to the shrub forest of the low-hanging vegetation. But today what we're giving them a little snack is actually one of their main dietary staples within Madagascar, which is tamarin. Now, tamarin is a fruit that is found throughout the equator, so you found it in lots of different countries. But in a good year, this can actually make up about 50% of a lemur's diet. So this is something that on our sanctuary we do use as part of their diet, but primarily kind of a snack, a little treat that they get. They are an omnivore, an opportunist omnivore. They'll eat anything, again, from leaves, grass, shrub, to bark, insects, even small vertebrates. Our two guys here, we've noticed they're very, very big fans of fruit and vegetables. We have tried to provide them with a few insects here and there, and they're typically not the most interesting taste, or they prefer things to be a little sweeter than that. But with Lenny and Zoe, these two animals were both rescued from the sanctuary, or came to the sanctuary after being in private ownership, so they did exist within the exotic pet trade. Now, that is one of the bigger threats to these animals in the wild today. This is an animal that persists very heavily within captivity, in that there are, last studied, almost 3,000 ring-tailed lemurs within zoos and other facilities just in the United States alone. But in the wild, in 2017, there was counts of anywhere as low as 2,000 left in the wild as a whole. Now, these threats are, we see threats not only of the exotic pet trade and the meat trade, but also the big one is habitat loss. Being an endemic animal to a specific region, once their habitat is gone, there's just nowhere else for them to go. So they are, again, a very, very specialized animal. But they are pretty unique. They are a very social species, hence why Lenny and Zoe do live together. They enjoy each other's company. Lenny got a little tired of Zoe when she first got here. He had lived by himself and wasn't used to all the attention that she wanted to provide. But ever since arriving, they have become very, very close, and you typically see them cuddling up, which is a very common thing that you will see them do in the wild as well. The social behaviors these animals show are very unique in that the females are actually the dominant of the species. The males are going to be the less dominant of the two. Within the troops that they live in, which can be upwards of 60 individuals, there's typically one or two dominant females, and then lower class submissive females. And then with the males, their dominance hierarchy is all going to be classified within age. And obviously the older, healthier males are going to be your breeding males within that troop. Communication-wise, we just heard Zoe kind of give us a good example of that. They have one of the most unique and extensive communication kind of repertoires of primates in general. We can hear anything from Zoe's calls, which you'll hear kind of call out like we just did, clicks and purrs, lots of different vocalizations, but they also utilize scent as a very, very, very heavily within their communication as well. Scent marking is a big part of what lemurs do to not only mark territory, but obviously to show when they are in breed, when they're ready to mate. Males will typically be the ones that you see doing a lot more of the scent marking. They typically do what is known, one of the more characteristic scent marking tactics they utilize, what is called stink fighting. Stink fighting is a method where they will impregnate their tail with a large amount of scent from their scent glands that are located on their arms, and wave them around in the air as a show of territorial behavior, as display to show how dominant they actually are. Lenny does like to let everybody know whose territory you're in. When you come out to the sanctuary, you will typically see him rubbing his arms on sticks, letting you know that the habitat he is in is his house, and you don't get to mess with him very much. But within the socialization, we do know these animals are very unique within their overall communication method, and though they are not seen or known to be as intelligent as some of the other higher level primates, still have a very, very high level of intelligence, especially when it comes to their overall community basis. But Lenny and Zoe are both really unique, probably two of the crowd favorites. When you come out to the sanctuary, Zoe does like to come out and talk to people. Zoe, do you want to talk? Zoe. Are you not going to talk today? It's like I got Tamarin. I don't need to talk to anybody right now. But these animals are something that is an animal that does need to be protected, because being an endemic species, there really is no other area where they can exist outside of Madagascar. And so the protection that we see going on in Madagascar is very heavy, trying to preserve this species. They are a very animal that is very readily bred in captivity, so we are hopeful that once the habitat destruction has subsided, once we start to see it kind of decrease, we could see potentially a reintroduction to the of higher populations back into the wild with these animals. But that's it, Lenny. Well, I can go ahead and start answering any questions you guys have about Lenny and Zoe.
So, at the beginning of the video, we had a really poor connection, and I don't know if you want to go over some of that information from the beginning again. Just introduction of these guys, and
so for those,
if you can remember,
if you guys did miss, the connection was a little poor, you guys missed a little bit. At the beginning of the video, I just mentioned who these two animals are. This is Lenny and Zoe, the two ring-tailed lemurs on the sanctuary. Lemurs are a species that is found only on the island of Madagascar, just off the coast of Africa. It's an animal that actually, though ring-tailed lemurs are typically the most well-known, the most characteristic of the lemurs, obviously with their long, fluffy black and white tail. There are actually over 100 different species of lemurs, consisting within 5 different genuses. Now, these two are found within the genus Lemur, and they are the only ones that are found within that genus. Was that piece not good enough? Again, very unique animals in general. You want it? Do like their snacks a lot, like the cats. But again, being an omnivorous species, so they're going to eat a large variety of food, anything from vegetation, fruits, vegetables, tamarin, which they're eating now, is a large part of their diet, to insects, vertebrates, small vertebrates. But very intelligent species, love to communicate with not only each other, but everyone that comes out to the sanctuary. So
you can go ahead and ask.
So Michelle asked, what are you feeding them?
So Lenny and Zoe are getting a little what's called tamarin. It's a fruit that is native through many countries throughout the equator. In Madagascar, where these animals are found, in a good year, this can actually be about 50% of their primary diet. So this is, for us though, with our big guy, our two little guys, they eat a lot of fruits and vegetables on the sanctuary. Tamarin, though it is a part of their diet, it doesn't make up, is kind of more of a treat for them with us.
Dan and Mary Kay asked, how did they get to you?
So Lenny and Zoe were both relinquished from the pet trade, so they were people's pets prior to arrival of the sanctuary. Their previous owners kind of started making the realization that these are not pets. Being primates, they can be very aggressive. Though they are very cute, they can have a lot of aggression, and unfortunately, do not make good pets. And once the realization of that was made, their owners made the decision to relinquish them to the sanctuary.
Grayson asks what the life expectancy of a lemur is.
Life expectancy in the wild, you're going to see about 16 to 20 years. Obviously, in captivity with correct medical treatment, dietary preparation and everything, you can see a slight extension of that. Zoe here is 11 years old. Lenny is 12. He just turned 12 on April 1st, actually, so his birthday was just about a couple weeks ago. So they are older lemurs, but they're still in very, very good health.
Susan asked, I see you feeding them with your bare hands. Can you hold them or touch them?
We do not interact with these animals either. Again, with these two, they are a little bit more, being as social as they are, and kind of working with them as long as we have, we know that we can hand them food with our hands. There's no issue to that, but we do not interact with these animals either, just like the big cats.
Kathy asked, what is their usual demeanor? Are they quiet or usually vocal?
Typically very vocal, especially the females. Again, the females are going to be the more dominant of the two genders, and so they do typically communicate quite a bit more. Lenny doesn't talk a whole lot. He's not the most vocal of the two, but Zoe does like to talk quite a bit, so she's one that loves to let you know she's here. So
What kind of foods do they eat besides the tamarind?
So fruits and vegetables on the sanctuary, they're going to eat fruits, vegetables, different browse, leaves, bark, different rotting wood they'll actually consume as well. Insects, even small vertebrates, so they'll eat birds, lizards, things of that nature. So they are a very opportunist animal, so they're going to eat pretty much whatever they can get their hands on. Our two guys are pretty picky, I would say. They only really like to eat the stuff that they really enjoy. We do have a specialized primate biscuit that gives them a lot of the nutrition that they need, but they get a lot of apples, carrots, different fruits, and things of that nature.
What's their favorite food?
Oh, favorite food. So I would say probably berries, something like blueberries, grapes. They love grapes. Things that have a lot of sugar content. A lot like humans, they do like sugar. We do have to monitor that because a lot like humans, they can become diabetic. So we do have to monitor how much sugar they actually get. But I would say their favorite food or anything with a high amount of sugar is what they enjoy. So
Olivia wants to know if they climb very high.
they can climb very high. They're obviously incredible, as you see Zoe jumping around. They're incredibly athletic. Their towers here go up about 20 feet, so they have a high tower that they can climb up into. But even though that they are partially arboreal species living in the trees, they actually do spend about 30% of their lives on the ground as well, being a terrestrial animal.
Michael asked, what is their favorite form of enrichment during the summer?
Favorite form of enrichment. So these two, basically, what I've noticed is anything that involves food. They do like food. We haven't really identified a lot of scent enrichment that they fully enjoy, something like cinnamon, as much as like Bentley, our capuchin monkey. He's a little more entertaining when he gets enrichment. But Lenny and Zoe, I have given them things like rotted logs that have insects. They like to go through and pick the insects out. Giving them pumpkins, things like that they can kind of play with a little bit. But they're typically a pretty food-motivated set.
Glenda asked how you tell them apart.
So that's a pretty typical question. Again, I've worked around these two long enough that they don't look anything alike to me. But for people that don't know the guys, Zoe is over here on my right-hand side. She is the smaller of the two. She has a slightly narrower face. Lenny's going to be the larger of the two, the big guy sitting on the log. But the easiest way is typically if you can start getting Zoe to talk, you're going to be able to tell which one she is pretty quickly. Zoe, you going to talk? Zoe.
Dan and Mary Kay asked, how do they handle Missouri winters?
So we do monitor them pretty closely. Again, with these animals, they exist in the wild in a range of habitats where the temperatures can actually vary anywhere from about 10 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 100, 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So as far as adaptability, they are very adaptable. Obviously, with R2, they are still very intelligent, and so they understand if it's cold, they're going to go inside in front of their heater. Most of the time in the colder months, you will find them in their bedroom sitting in front of their heater. So they like to stay warm, but they adapt very well to the winter, to the weather for the most part.
Grayson asks if they like water and if they like to play in water.
So in the wild, obviously, they would exist around ponds, things of that nature, even hunting small fish on occasion. But R2, they're not the biggest fans. If it is raining, you don't typically see them outside. They like to stay dry as much as possible. So they're not a hyper-aquatic-based lemur. There are many lemur species that are very, very aquatic-based. The ringtails are not necessarily those, though.
Do the long tails have a reason for that?
So it's going to be a high amount of balance. It helps when they're moving through the trees, when they are moving the branches and things like that. That acts as a large balance. It is not. They don't have any dexterity with their tail, so they can't use it like a capuchin monkey or other monkey or primate species that can use it to grab things. But it is also a sign of territorial behavior. Again, the males will use them as the scent marking. It's something that can show health with these animals. So it has a number of reasons. But as far as how long it is, it's going to be an example of just showing that counterbalance, a lot like some of the big climbing cats that we have.
Karen asked if they get grumpy with each other.
They can on occasion. We have, in my time here, we've had to separate them a couple times just because they've gotten in couples quarrel on occasion. But they get along very well for the most part. It took Lenny a little while. Lenny came to the sanctuary first, and then Zoe joined him a couple months later. It took him a little while to get used to her being around him. Again, she was very affectionate. She really wanted attention, and he had been used to living by himself, so he wasn't quite ready for that amount of attention yet. But they've become very close ever since being on the sanctuary for several years now.
Dawn asked, will they eat meat?
They will, yep. So they are an omnivore, so they will eat different types of meat. With our guys, we haven't noticed them really be that interested in any kind of, we've tried to provide them with insects and things like that. Not a huge fan of them. Again, I have seen them, when I've given them rotted out logs, they'll go through and pick a few of the insects out. But like crickets, things like that, they're not real interested in them. But in the wild, lizards, birds, things like, they will consume different vertebrates.
Is that the only sound they make?
No, they make a large number of vocalizations. That's the typical one that you hear Zoe makes. That's her typical call. She loves to mimic different noises. So when the phone rings in the office, she'll kind of ring back at it. Yeah. They make a lot of clicks, a lot of purrs. So they make a high number of vocalizations. But that's just the most common one you hear with Zoe.
How many babies do they typically have at one time in the wild?
Babies are going to see anywhere from 1 to 4 typically. Moms have basically two pairs of mammary glands, so they can care for four babies at a time. Typically 2 is going to be the average, though.
Debbie asked if they are an endangered species.
They are an endangered species in the wild, unfortunately. We are seeing, again, in captivity, you see a high number of these animals. They are very easy to breed. You see a lot of facilities breeding them, not only for utilization in zoos, but private ownership, unfortunately, and things like that. But in the wild, we are seeing numbers as low as around 2,000 in the wild right now. So they are a critically endangered species.
Do the black and white stripes on the tail have anything to do? Does it help them in any way?
So it's again kind of identification. It will show health and just general kind of the coloration pattern that they have in general. What's interesting is the stripes actually coincide with the vertebra that goes down through their tail. So they have the same number of stripes as the number of vertebrae in the tail.
Do they have claws?
They do have claws. Nails very similar to humans. They have specialized nails that they utilize for scent marking to helping open different things. So he's going to show them off right now. But they do like to, that's why we don't interact with them, as they like to scratch and bite on occasion. So you have to be very careful around them.
Judy asked, at what age are they considered adults?
So age as far as adults, it's pretty quick. Again, having a relatively short life expectancy, anywhere from that 16 to 20 year age, you're going to see full growth within about 3 years, and sexual maturity within that about time as well.
In the wild, how many can be in one group?
Up to 60. So troops can consist up to 60 individuals.
Do we have any more questions? Jump on and ask. Otherwise, we're going to wrap things up. I don't see any questions. Did we get everything?
I think so.
All right.
Alrighty, guys. Well, again, we'd like to thank you for joining us, talking about some of the animals that live here on the sanctuary. Again, make sure that you do follow our social media pages, like our posts, and share them with your friends so we can continue educating the public and helping people kind of through this period of boredom. Our cats are obviously starting to get a little bored, not seeing people as much as they usually do. They're starting to get a little antsy. Because of that, we would like to extend the offer for anyone that does have would like something to do. We are starting to run a little low on some of our boxes since we're not doing a lot of ordering. So if anyone would like to make some enrichment boxes, obviously making it fully non-toxic paint with cardboard boxes, all taped, staples removed from those boxes. We will have a location on the sanctuary set out that you can safely drop them off without having any kind of human interaction, obviously. And then we will follow up with giving those to different animals on the sanctuary and videotaping that so you guys can watch them. But we will have posts on Facebook following this for further instructions. But just to kind of help boredom a little bit, if guys need something to do, we would greatly appreciate some enrichment boxes, and I think the cats would as well.
I think we have a few more questions we can answer real fast.
Dawn asked, would they be able to be in a different enclosure with other lemurs?
So yeah, so they are the introduction of these animals. So if we were to rescue another lemur, the introduction process is something that we don't take lightly. Again, it's something that these animals, if they had not lived together, you can see aggression. But because these are such social animals, through the correct introduction period, correct quarantine period, we would likely be able to introduce them to other lemurs as well if any ever join the sanctuary.
Olivia wants to know if they have sharp teeth.
Very, very sharp teeth. So they have a couple different styles of teeth. Again, very similar to humans. They're going to have your molars, premolars, and canines, but they also have a large comb tooth on the bottom of their jaw, and they are all very, very sharp.
Michelle asked how aggressive can they get?
They can be very aggressive. So again, like most primates, they can show a high amount of territorial behavior. Lenny is kind of the worst of the two. He likes to let you know whose house you're in, and that is, again, why we're not ever in physical contact with these animals.
Victor asked if these are the same species as the ones on the island in Georgia.
I am not sure. It would not be a native species because these animals are only native to Madagascar off the coast of Africa. I would have to look at that. I am unsure of that answer, honestly.
Then Sarah asked, is there anything we can provide if we are not local? Order on Amazon or for enrichment some way?
So we always have our items on our Amazon wish list that help us out. I know I just used the last of our tamarin for these guys, so they would probably appreciate a little bit more tamarin to come through. But we always have items on the wish list that are available that the sanctuary is always utilizing, so you can always find that on Amazon off our website.
You can always donate to Facebook. We have a post. This post has a donate button to it, or you can click over to our website and donate as well. And sharing these videos and telling other people about these videos is definitely supporting us too. So, is there any more questions?
There's one more question. Karen asked, are they endangered due to man or habitat in the wild?
So the causes of the endangerment of these animals is all a human-centric problem. And you see the three main causes right now we're seeing is habitat loss is a big one. Again, this is an animal that was pretty much they're the only native primates to Madagascar. When humans started occupying Madagascar, you saw a high amount of destruction of their natural forests and removal of the habitat that these animals would call home. And then utilization in the pet trade and bushmeat is another big issue with these animals as well. So they are critically endangered due to human interaction and human complications, but we are hoping to see that change moving forward in the future.
Caleb wants to know what time they mate.
Time they mate, so it can be actually any time throughout the year. And so because again within where they are naturally found, you don't see a heavy amount of seasonal change. They can mate throughout any point of the year, and typically moms are going to care for their young for several years for a couple years at that time before they are fully mature. What?
Did you get all of them? Okay, I think that's it. So.
Alrighty, guys. Well, again, thank you for joining us. If you do have any other questions, feel free to comment them on the post, and we will be sure to follow up with those. But again, join us next week. We will be talking about another animal on the sanctuary, and you guys just have to tune in to figure out which one that is.
It's a surprise. Yep.